Is being spiritual enough? We walked up the curved pathway toward a big, beautiful brick church in Birmingham, Alabama. It had welcoming white double doors, a steep pitched roof, and a towering steeple. It looked like it should be on a Christmas card. The only thing missing was some snow. I'm a New Englander at heart, so I sort of think churches ought to look like that. Well, even though I prefer white clapboards over bricks. But still, it sure was impressive. In awe, a young seminarian in the group asked, "Can you imagine what the Apostle Paul would think if he could only see this church today?" A cynical friend of mine piped up from the back of the group. Paul would probably think it was another one of those pagan temples. Like that man, many millennials today don't think my storybook Christmas card church or the new industrial-looking megachurch invoke any true spirituality. And you know, I don't blame them. And I'm not sure God is impressed with many of those buildings either. A lot of people have given up on church. The de-churched feel they were driven out. And many others have no past or present connection to any church. But a significant number of them are still seeking God. Maybe you're one of them. Many have found their own cathedrals in a meadow, on a hillside, walking along a shore, hiking into the mountains, or gazing into the starlit night sky. I understand. You see, the majestic Rocky Mountains are just out my window. And from my deck at 7,000 feet above sea level, the starlit expanse of a clear night forms a cathedral beyond description. These natural cathedrals draw the spiritual out of the recesses of our souls. And many people today feel closer to God in nature than they do in any church building. They say they feel closest to God there. They say that is where they experience the spiritual. But what is that? And who is the God they experience? Do they really know? Is he more than some fog-like, man-made deity? Isn't he really just an unknown God? And what does being just spiritual really mean? And is that enough? And is it enough for you? You should watch the Just a Question video, Does Your Worldview Make Sense? It goes along with this one. You see, everybody has a worldview made up of their answers to a handful of core questions. The 6 core questions defined in that video shed revealing light on the idea that being just spiritual is enough. Many people say they are spiritual, say they believe in God. But to them, God is a somewhat disengaged, benevolent grandfather type who lives somewhere far away in the heavens. He wants them to be good, well, as they define good, and he wants them to be happy. If called upon, he might even step in to help in a crisis, or at least you can sort of feel like you've left a voicemail. And good people of all religions get to go to heaven. In their book Soul Searching, Smith and Denton call this foggy view of God moralistic, therapeutic deism. Moralistic, therapeutic deism. In addition to that, technology has virtually shrunk our world. And as the world shrank, so has many people's sense of personal significance. In reality, many of these just spiritual people feel like the insignificant, quasi-worshipping, an unknown and foggy God. The answers to the 6 worldview questions are life-defining and eternity-defining. I'm going to give those questions to you with the answers that a just spiritual person might embrace. Here they are. Question 1. Who is the highest power? Who is the highest power? The just spiritual answer is, my unknown God is the highest power. Second question, who am I? Their answer is, well, actually I feel like an insignificant being. Third question is, who defines morality and truth? Their answer is, I do, or my peers and I do. Next question, what happens when I die? Well, maybe I go to heaven, or maybe I just go to sleep. And what determines my answers to these questions? I do. What's the basis of my authority? I am. And finally, what am I going to do with Jesus and the Bible? The answer they give is, well, just sort of give some nodding approval and generally ignore Jesus and the Bible. If you're one of the just spiritual ones, are you satisfied with that worldview, or your worldview that might be just a little different than that? Are you willing to bet your eternity on it? I'll tell you, I sure wouldn't. The Apostle Paul got a chance to speak to a group of spiritual men in Athens. Maybe you're like them. And just to cover all their bases, they even had an idol to the unknown God. Listen to some paraphrased excerpts from Paul's words to them from Acts 17. Here's what he said. People of Athens, I see that you are very spiritual. While I was observing the objects of your worship, I even found an altar with the inscription, to an unknown God. Therefore, what you worship from lack of knowledge, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and all things in it does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all people life and breath and all things. He's done that so you would seek him and find him. He's not far from each of us, for in him we live and move and have our being. We shouldn't think that God is created by man. And now God is declaring that all people everywhere should repent, because he has fixed a day in which he will judge the world in righteousness through a man, that's Jesus, whom he has appointed, having furnished proof to all men by raising him from the dead. Now when they heard of the resurrection of the dead, some began to sneer, but others said, We'll hear you again concerning this. So Paul went out from their midst, but some men joined him and believed. Skeptic, seeker, you don't have to worship God in a building. In John 4, Jesus said, True worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. You see, Jesus didn't say that you have to worship God in spirit and in a building. But he did say that you have to worship him in truth. Being spiritual is important, but you must also worship God in truth, in spirit and in truth. In John 14, Jesus said, I, speaking of himself, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. So, worship the true God in spirit, but go to him in the only true way possible, through Jesus. Go to the Father in spirit and in truth. Jesus is the one truth. Don't be satisfied worshiping an unknown God of your own making. Seek the true God. If you want to be sure you are right with God in spirit and in truth, visit 911god.org. In the video there, I'll walk you through the one true way to the one true God. I'm John Morris, and this is Just a Question.